You're being lied to. What I mean by that is, as you've gone through your life, through school and growing up as a child, people have told you their ideas on what's going on, and some of them have been valid, and some of them not so much. But you've gotten to a point where you need to start filtering out the misinformation and focus on what's good for you. I've been asked to make some comments to the graduating class, and that's a big responsibility, so I spent a lot of time thinking about what I should say and how I should say it. And here's kind of an outline of what I'd like to go over. And I'll make this link available if you want to follow up on it later. Here's the key pieces of advice I would give to you in order to achieve success as you start going forward in life. Step number 1 is act with integrity and take extreme ownership of everything you do. And there's a good book I've read that I encourage you to read as well. Own your mistakes and be harder on yourself than anyone else, but be easy on others. Spend 10% of your income on stuff to make yourself better. Could be training, seminars, courses, books, or other material to stimulate your thinking up to a higher level. Set the agenda, right? Because as you've gone through school, your parents and your teachers have told you what to think and how to do it. And I'm going to suggest you don't follow the agenda of anybody except yourself. See yourself as being the president and CEO of You Personal Services, Inc. Have 6 independent streams of income so you're never dependent on any one thing. Learn how capital markets work, develop financial skills, and as you go through life, not at the beginning, maybe not for the first 10 or 15 years, but see yourself as being somebody who owns businesses. You own your means of production. You're not dependent on other people to control it. Develop a valuable specialty. Be the go-to expert on something people need. Invent your work. Do not rent out your time. Here's a piece of operational advice I will give you in terms of your immediate concern, which is getting the job. Develop an obsessive, fascinating interest with some one particular topic, and then keep chasing after it. Look for ways to connect directly with decision makers, and now you can do that very easily through LinkedIn. And right now we're on this quarantine lockdown thing, which I get is aggravating. Hopefully it's going to go away at some time. I'll tell you some of the things I've done in the past, which is to drop off resumes and applications directly at specific companies I wanted to work for. Just give it to the receptionist, say, butter them up. I know you're the key person around here who makes everything happen. Could I ask you to put this in the hands of the right decision maker? I'm looking for a job in so-and-so. And go and research the company, right? And you have so many opportunities now. Things like highbeam.com and LinkedIn and the public library. You can get access to all sorts of market intelligence databases that would cost thousands of dollars if you wanted to subscribe to. So know the target, know the company, take advantage of all the open source intelligence, and these days I guess it has to be mostly through email, but look for ways to connect directly with the decision maker. Do they have a blog they've written? Have they written books? Go and spend $10 to buy their book on Kindle and read it. So when you speak to them, and don't be too blatant or over the top about it, but drop in a quote from their book and say, I read this in your book and that was really meaningful to me. Look for ways to show people that you have some interest in that position and that job, more than just writing your name on a piece of paper and saying, please give me a job. And develop an obsessive interest on some problem the company has or some technology they're learning how to use. For example, if I was your age right now, this marketplace, this condition, and I wanted a job, I would learn everything I could about Power BI, Excel, MS Access, SQL, and Power Query. Because data skills are things that pretty much every company needs, right? It's a thing you can do from home, working by remote, and a lot of their older people are big experts in specific areas. They don't want to learn new technologies like Power BI. So I'm suggesting that your window of entry, your opportunity of entry, is going to be on some new technology, right? For me, back in 1993, it was HTML and web services. For you guys, you can go to meetup.com, right? They don't have them physically right now. They have them through Zoom. You guys know what meetup.com is, right? So there's communities that focus on pretty much everything you could name: manufacturing, fintech, information technology, data reporting, analytics, mobile application development. So become obsessively interested in a company or an industry coupled with a technology. Think and live in that state all the time. See yourself as already doing that job. Come up with some little practice projects. Maybe create and publish a blog. So if they search for your name, they see some stuff related to that. And then when you talk to the decision maker, be interested, right? So talk to them, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Jones. I'm really excited to work for XYZ company because I really love working with data analytics and I love working with Power BI. I just got my Power BI certification and I see that your company just got a contract from the government to do, fill in the details, and I would love to work on that. Is that something I could do? Right? They say in sales, always drive for the close. Always conclude a sales meeting, which anytime you're talking to somebody about something that you want them to give you, it is a sales meeting, always close and ask for the job, right? Is that something I could do? Right? Would you hire me? Could you recommend me to speak to some decision maker who can hire me? Can I come and work for your company for 2 weeks? You don't have to pay me, and I'll do some good work that needs to be done. Right? I guess they call that an internship now. And if you're not happy with me, that's great. I'll say goodbye. And if you are, then we can talk about it. So look for ways to get obsessively interested in specifics. And in fact, the more specific and the more focused you can make your obsessive interest, the bigger it's going to pay off. Many years ago, when I was studying electrical engineering, I wanted to buy my own test equipment, an oscilloscope and a signal generator and some other stuff we use, because even back then nobody had told me about this, but I got the idea that extreme ownership of what you're doing is pretty important, so I wanted to have my own equipment to do my experiments on electronics at home. And I met a guy, and his name was Sal. I met him through an amateur radio club meeting, right? Because back then we didn't have meetup.com, but I thought if I want to work in electronics, if I go to amateur radio club meetings, that's probably people working in electronics, so that might work. We'll see about that. And I met him, and I told him, and he said he was retiring, and he said he's got equipment to sell, so I arranged with him. He gave me a good price. And when I went to pick up the oscilloscope, he told me one of the top pieces of advice I've ever heard in my life, which is he said, you need to get very interested in something very focused. And what it is doesn't really matter too much. He said to me, I was about 20 at the time, he said, son, when I was your age, I decided that I wanted to be the biggest rebuilder of TV tuners in North America. You guys don't know what TV tuners are because you watch Netflix. Back in the old days, in your grandparents' time, they had these boxes called TVs. And it had this thing, you click, 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 you change the channels. Those were sort of like websites, but not really. They were channels. They were portions of bandwidth on the EM spectrum. Anyway, because they were manually turned a lot before they had electronic tuners, they got worn out. And Sal said he wanted to be the biggest rebuilder of them in North America. And you may say that does not sound like a very grandiose goal, but he said it worked out for him, right? He said within 10 years he achieved his goal. He owned 3 houses, and buying a house should be on the top of all of your list, by the way. In Ontario, first-time buyer, 5% down, have multiple streams of income. A house is one of them. Anyway, he said that was his goal, and he achieved it, and he sold that business, and he went and started other businesses. So be entrepreneurial and look for ways to work for yourself and invent your work rather than renting out your time. Right? There's so much I could tell you, and I'm trying to condense it down into a little bit of time for this video, but those are some of the key things I think you need to hear about. Study the great communicators, and I'll give you some references that I follow, such as Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy, and Zig Ziglar. Invest in yourself, have written goals. Top executives spend thousands of dollars each month on coaching. They hire people to keep them accountable on what they should be doing and how they should be doing it. Never stop thinking and learning. There will be more opportunities to generate wealth over the next 20 years than the human race has ever seen. So see yourself as being an entrepreneur in whatever job or endeavor you do. If you're an employee at a company, see yourself as being an entrepreneur within that role. Look for ways to take available resources and create new value. Value the place and the people you came from, but do not be limited by them. Your parents, God bless them, they were hardworking people, they raised you, but do not be limited by their ideas they may have passed on to you about how the world works. Top achievers, influencers, and success people read 50 books a year. So keep feeding your awareness, your philosophy of how the world works. Study classical literature and understand the world you're living in. Form a mastermind group with other people to help you support each other's goals. And get up early each day. Spend a golden hour exposing yourself to great reading, YouTube videos, or inspirational material to help you develop your thinking. A great thing to do during your golden hour is to ask yourself, your brain, your subconscious, if you want to call it that, what actions can I do at work today which are going to most advance my situation? It might be learning and becoming an expert in a new system, for example. A lot of the success I achieved at IBM was when new systems came along or new things needed to be done, and everybody else shied away from it and made whining noises about how they were too busy and they had too much to do. I took it, right? I jumped on it, I grabbed it, I printed out the PDFs and read them and studied them, and I became the expert on that system. And sometimes it fizzled away, right? Sometimes that system wound up never being used for anything. But a couple of times it really paid off because the system took off big and I was the one who knew how to use it. I'd go out to client sites to train them, and I'd be asked to join other teams to integrate that system with other IBM systems. So never shy away from an opportunity to get good at something which is needed at the place where you're working. And a lot of the people you work with, in fact, I can say almost all of them, are not going to be spending their mornings asking what they can learn that's going to advance their situation. They're going to be whining about their manager, their coworkers, how hard the job is, and nagging and carrying on. And the human brain, which, by the way, that's something you should go and study because most of you do have very fine brains, so you can learn how to use them better. There's a thing here at the back of the skull called the medulla oblongata, and it controls breathing and respiration, and it also controls your self-image. And it's a fact of human psychology that if you formulate a self-image of yourself, your brain will do whatever it takes to make that self-image get actuated in the real world. A smart guy, William James, about 100 years ago, a psychologist, did a lot of research on that. I'll leave you to go and do your own reading. But when you write your goals and when you write your outcomes every morning during your golden hour, your brain is going to actuate ways to make that happen. So make sure you're setting the right goals and you're asking yourself the right questions. If the question is, why am I stuck in this stupid job I can't stand? Your brain will come up with good answers to tell you why you're stuck in a stupid job that you can't stand. And if you have higher quality questions like what systems can I learn, or what skills can I develop, or what networking can I build, your brain will actuate ways to make that happen. By the way, another smart guy at IBM told me a good lesson, which is that workers, because you know there's a triad, probably in your organizational psychology class they taught you this. They say in every company, the majority of people down at the bottom of the income, bottom of the status pile, the lower 80%, they do most of the work and they get the lesser amount of income, and they're what we call the do level of the stack, right? They do stuff. And then above the doers, we have the managers, and above the managers, we have the leaders. And the leaders, to be honest, don't do that much work. I mean, they do visioning, they do creative planning and so on, so they do a lot of brain work. They're not the ones there at 3 o'clock in the morning getting the database problem fixed. And the difference is that as people move up that value chain and they move into leadership, they spend more and more of their working hours on networking and on asking themselves, how can I build up positive connections with other people in the organization, which will enable me to get some advance in my own position. So Peter's piece of advice, look for ways to network and make yourself valuable to other people, and that will create a synergistic effect, right? As they move ahead, they're going to pull you with them because they know that you're one of their supporters.
Then what do you change to make your life work well? You got to start with your philosophy. Guess what I had to do at age 25 in order to change my own future? I had to change my mind. I had to change my thinking. I had to change my philosophy. I was messed up on what was causing my problem. And once I got that straightened out, that all the stuff I blamed, the government and taxes and the marketplace and the economy and things cost too much, negative relatives, cynical neighbors, once I got rid of that and started going for where the real problem was, which was me, I'm telling you, my life exploded into change. But I do have some ideas. Take some good notes. Somebody showed me the other day notes that they took about 21 years ago, attending one of my seminars out in Los Angeles. He said, I still use these notes I took 21 years ago. Just review those. Number one is philosophy. Philosophy, as I taught the last time I was here, philosophy, in my personal opinion, is the major determining factor in how your life works out. Philosophy. To form our philosophy, you got to think. You got to use your mind. You got to process ideas. And this whole process over a lifetime, starting way back here when we were children, schools that we've attended, our parents, our experiences, all this stuff that we've processed by the thinking process helps to develop our philosophy. And in my opinion, each person's personal philosophy is the major factor in how your life works out.
Hello, I'm Brian Tracy, and today I want to talk to you about one of the single best qualities that you can develop for success. Actually, it's the best quality and the most important quality, and without it, nothing is possible. The great secret of success is that there are no secrets of success. There are only timeless principles that have been proven effective throughout the centuries. There's one special quality that you can develop that will guarantee your greater success, accomplishment, and happiness in life. Of 1,000 principles for success developed over the ages, this one quality or practice will do more to assure that you accomplish wonderful things with your life than anything else. The quality is so important that if you don't develop it to a high degree, it's impossible for you to ever achieve what you are truly capable of achieving. The quality that I'm talking about is the quality of self-discipline. It is a habit, a practice, a philosophy, and a way of living. All successful men and women are highly disciplined in the important work that they do. All unsuccessful men and women are undisciplined and unable to control their behaviors and their appetites. And when you develop the same levels of high personal discipline possessed by the most goal-oriented, successful people in our society, you will very soon begin to achieve the same results that they do. It's no miracle. All great success in life is preceded by long, sustained periods of focused effort on a single goal, the most important goal, with the determination to stay with it until it is complete. Throughout history, we find that every man or woman who achieved anything lasting and worthwhile had engaged in long, often unappreciated hours, weeks, months, and even years of concentrated, disciplined work in a particular direction. Fortunately, the quality of self-discipline is something that you can learn by continuous practice, over and over, until you master it. Once you've mastered the ability to delay gratification, the ability to discipline yourself to keep your attention focused on the most important task in front of you, there is virtually no goal that you cannot accomplish and no task that you cannot complete. I have studied successful men and women for more than 40 years, and in the simplest of terms, successful men and women are those who work almost all the time on high-value tasks. Unsuccessful men and women are those who waste their time by wasting the minutes and hours of each day on low-value activities. You see, there is a crowding out principle in time and personal management. It simply says that if you spend all of your time on highly productive tasks, by the end of the day, you will have crowded out all the unproductive activities that might have distracted you from your real work and from what's really important. On the other hand, If you spend your time on low-value activities, the reverse happens. Those low-value activities will crowd out the time that you need to complete the tasks that can make all the difference in your life. And the key to this attitude toward time and personal management is always self-discipline. There are several disciplines that you need to develop if you want to achieve your full potential. The first of these is the discipline of goals. This means that you sit down with a pad of paper, a pen, and ample time to think. You think through and then make a written list of all the things that you want to accomplish in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 years. You organize the list into the various areas of your life, your career, your money, your family, your health, and the other parts that are important to you. Interestingly enough, if you can be clear about your goals and write them down, there's nothing that can stop you from achieving them. But if you're not clear, that means that you haven't written them down, there's nothing that can help you. You set priorities among your goals and rewrite your lists so that your most important goals are at the top. You then take a separate sheet of paper and you make a list of all the things that you can think of doing right now to move you toward the attainment of your most important goals. Fully 97% of adult Americans are trying to live their lives without clear, specific, written goals. This is the same as setting off across an unknown country without a roadmap. You may get somewhere eventually, but it will take you much longer, and it's far more likely that you will get lost and waste an enormous amount of time than if you planned your trip carefully with a roadmap and full information about the future terrain before you started out. The second discipline you need to develop for success is the discipline of planning. Many people think that they are too busy to plan, or they don't give themselves enough time to plan. You will save 10 minutes in execution and getting the job done for every minute that you invest in planning. You will get a 1,000% return on your time investment by taking the time to think through in advance what you are going to do in the hours and days ahead.